Welcome back. Another white person gets attacked on a train. And the government, the news, people don't say nothing about it. This happened in Chicago last weekend. Right here, attack on the Blue Line subway in Chicago, Illinois was horrible. But knowing how the Cook County judge did next to nothing to stop the suspect from reoffending is worse. How did he get arrested 72 times but was free to do this again? Brian Johnson, the mayor of New York, is a sorry piece of shit person. Really is. He's a sorry piece of shit. Look at the video.
And we're never gonna see justice in these deep blue cities until the judges can be held liable for enabling these crimes. As in Chicago, Illinois, a man arrested 72 times was seen filling up a bottle with gasoline. Then 20 minutes later, goes on to the Blue Line subway, randomly setting an innocent woman on fire, leaving her in critical condition.
He lit a woman on fire aboard a train. Meanwhile, there are growing questions about why he was back out on the streets despite a rap sheet reportedly going back to the early 90s.
Family will not be providing any more updates. We've tracked down more than 4 dozen arrests of Lawrence Reed since 1993. 9 of them were for felonies, yet he has served just over 2 years behind bars. The state's attorney requested pre-trial detention, but Judge Teresa Molina Gonzalez denied him the request and put him on electronic monitoring. Judge Molina Gonzalez said, "I can't put everyone behind bars or keep everyone in jail just because the state's attorney has asked me to."
In other words, this liberal judge just said, "I refuse to keep Cook County residents safe, as that would require locking up dangerous criminals with long histories of violent activity." But not only have these activist judges refused to protect the people, the mayor also seems desperate to protect the attacker.
All I can say is that as awful and as horrific as this tragedy is, this is an isolated incident. As we continue to invest more in our public transportation system.
It's kind of hard to call this an isolated incident when the arsonist has been arrested over 70 times. Not to mention, this isn't even the first time he set fire on the Blue Line, where CWB Chicago captured when he set fire to the Thompson building just above the subway station. But Mayor Johnson will conveniently ignore this.
How will you specifically be changing safety measures on the CTA for writers' room?
And so there are appropriations that have been dedicated specifically around safety, but even more specifically around homelessness, as well as mental health services, right? So now we have a governing structure that will allow for all voices to come together to think strategically about where those investments should rest.
So an innocent woman was just burned alive on the Blue Line, and his best solution is, we're going to get together and think about how to spend more of your money. As just one side of this spending is homelessness, which Mayor Johnson just upped to $195 million from last year's $161 million. They haven't even charged this arsonist, and he's already calculating how much extra cash he can squeeze from taxes. As you can't convince me this horrific crime wasn't part of their plan. Well, the more you know about the suspect and the system that enabled it, the worse this gets. Where CWB Chicago reports, he shouted, "Burn alive, B," after setting the girl ablaze, which is after he set the Thompson Center on fire in 2020 over not receiving his Social Security check, to which he pled guilty, but only received 2 years of mental health probation, despite already being on probation for battery twice. But the court called this arson satisfactory. Then just 3 months ago, he allegedly knocked out a social worker at a psychiatric facility, but the judge rejected his detention request, only placing him on electronic monitoring, saying he can't go back to that mental health hospital unless it's an emergency. So that social worker must feel so safe to know their attacker legally can't come back unless he's having a mental breakdown. But electronic monitoring does nothing, as when he set that girl on fire, he wasn't even supposed to be outside. It's almost like dangerous individuals need to be sent to a special place to be separated from society by force. If only we had a system where someone could pass judgment on who belongs behind bars. But unfortunately, in Chicago, their judges seem more concerned with coddling criminals than keeping their citizens safe, as this case is eerily similar to what occurred in Charlotte, where another innocent woman lost her life because liberal judges refused to lock up a dangerous individual. But even Chicago's governor refuses to acknowledge this.
You ask your friends to ride the L after midnight, or after, 9 o'clock at night even, to come down to the city from O'Hare.
Look, big cities have crime. There's no doubt about it. But let's just pay attention to what President Trump is doing.
Which mirrors the mayor's main concern.
The drama is the fact that we have people who are starving in our city who don't even feel safe going to get groceries because they're afraid of what Donald Trump is doing.
As this obsession with ICE enforcement ties up
Bullshit.
police resources,
You let this shit
they
happen,
could be out
motherfucker.
there protecting Chicago citizens. Then keep in mind, this is the same mayor that complained about Biden's newcomers overwhelming his city's resources. But instead of accepting any solutions, he's using this as a distraction from how completely lawless his city has become. But does the mainstream media call him out over this? No, the reporting over the attack is horrendous, with the local CBS affiliates writing the driest description of a terror attack, also reporting on if the suspect should remain in custody after burning their mass transit system. The fact that he loudly admitted it as he was being arrested apparently wasn't enough to keep him in custody, but you can't really expect much from Chicago. But then they reported how the mayor blamed the lack of mental health clinics, crying the state needs to give him his $1.5 billion faster. You genuinely have to be an evil individual to see this heinous crime and immediately go into, how can I use this to get my hands on more of your money? As this probably wasn't the first thing he said publicly, but the corporate media is so desperate to place the blame away from the mayor, they tried to shame the taxpayer, but absolutely nobody is buying it. But what's worse is when the UK's Guardian covered it, bringing up the similarity of the 57-year-old woman that was also set on fire in a subway in New York City, with CNN's reporting on the terror charges. But when they referenced the parallels on the murder of Irina Zarutska, they immediately went into defense, saying Trump is criticizing the crimes in Democrat-run cities, but there's actually a drop in violent crime. And anybody that's actually tried to report a crime in a Democrat-run city knows that they just make it as difficult as possible, so they can just juke the stats and pretend crime is down, as it's easy to ignore simple assaults and robberies until the lawlessness becomes so apparent people are being burned alive on your so-called safest subways ever. But how exactly does it get this bad? Just look at last year's situation in New York City, where the TikTok algorithm accidentally connected all these women complaining about being randomly attacked in the streets, only for them to later find out some of them were being attacked by the same guy who actually recorded himself attacking them, but then others were being attacked by a guy that just looked like that other dude. But all of them said it was near impossible to get the police to do anything about it. But when that same demographic saw this guy running for mayor,
violence is an artificial construction. We have to be very clear that what is happening here with these district attorneys, that is violence. That is violence of the highest degree.
promising to empty out their jails.
We know that we can reduce that jail population to less than 4,000.
Those same idiots actually elected him because he promised them free things. It's no secret that the streets in New York City have become increasingly more dangerous, but for some reason, they can't connect how soft on crime policies create more crime. But the prime